Let me summarize by saying that except for Vietnam, I think he was the greatest president of the last 100 years, with the exception of Franklin Roosevelt, who was his hero. And he was a lot like Roosevelt in many respects. I say that because I know that Sarge had a high regard for President Johnson, and I know that sometimes it's assumed I was his enemy because I opposed the war in Iraq. In any event, I wanted to say that here tonight in Chicago, where politics is such an important enterprise. As one who has many ties to this city since childhood, I'm especially glad that this award is being given in Chicago. I lived as a boy in Mitchell, South Dakota. I still do, after all these years. But the first year we were in Mitchell, we lived one block from the Chicago-Milwaukee Railway. You hear about somebody's on the wrong side of the tracks. I really don't know which was the wrong side and the right side in Mitchell. They looked very similar to me. But I loved those trains, not just the sounds and the whistles at night, but just seeing those powerful steam engines go through town. And I would tell you this, if I had been elected in 1972, along with my running mate, Sergeant Shriver, it was my intention to ask Congress to develop a plan to give America the safest, the fastest, cleanest railway network in the world. And that's what a great country like this should do. I know that costs a lot of money. I was looking at it the other day again, and I estimated that it would be expensive, roughly 1/3 of the cost of the war in Iraq. This region of the country has a lot of impressive cities and towns, but Chicago is really, in my mind, the center of all of this. It's the place where South Dakotans feel they've gone right to the heart of metropolitan America. Now, if caring about poverty, as Sarge and I did back in the 60s and 70s, let's look at this question about who cares about poverty in America. The first thing I want to say is that I know there are those who make wisecracks about we went to war on poverty and poverty won. Well, poverty got a holding action as a consequence of the Vietnam War, but a lot of gains were scored in the Johnson administration and since then. And one of those is the Legal Services Network that we honor here tonight. I think that of all the various programs of the New Deal and then later the war on poverty, this is a very important one. Sometimes we need a jarring experience to awaken us to the kind of needs that this organization is concerned with. I have given much of my life to the cause of hunger, eliminating hunger, both in this country and abroad. Let me just tell you one experience that awakened me to the problem of hunger right here in the United States. As I told you earlier, I headed the Food for Peace program in the Kennedy administration, which was an outreach to the developing countries of the world. For example, we were then sending 4 million tons of wheat flour, corn, cornmeal, edible oils, powdered milk, powdered eggs, 4 million tons of those commodities every year just to India. Today, India is a food exporting country, thanks in part to American help with their agriculture. But in those days, there were critical shortages in that country, and the American people can be very proud that we responded to that. My own conversion to the seriousness of the world hunger problem came on a troop ship in Italy, where I was based as a bomber pilot. As we pulled into the Naples harbor, it must have been in late August or early September 1944. And as we approached the docking area there, you could see 300 or 400 little children on either side of the docking area, and they were shouting to us in broken Italian, "Hey Joe, Babe Ruth, Butterfingers, Hershey bars." The commander of the ship broke in and said, "Do not throw anything to those children. This is war-torn Italy. Those children are at the age of starvation." Yesterday, an American troop ship came in here, and the GIs started throwing candy bars and so on. A lot of children jumped into the water to get these bits of food that fell short of the dock, and 25 of them drowned. And that was I think my first introduction to hunger. We lived with those hungry children and their mothers for the next year. I remember waking up the very first day, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear a scratching sound out behind our tents. I went out there, and here were a group of 35 or 40 young mothers, housewives, scrounging through our garbage to find bits of food to take home for their children. Many times we'd see the same women on the streets that night selling themselves for a few dollars to keep body and soul together. And I remember vowing right then that if I ever got a chance to do something about hunger in the world, I was going to do it. And thank God I've had that opportunity, perhaps more than any other American.